This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS The Voice of Stockton or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
You are tuning in to today's episode of the Phonebooth here on KXVS The Voice of Stockton. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's episode of the Phonebooth here on KXVS, The Voice of Stockton. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Brian?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good to hear, good to hear. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with what our show is all about, the Phonebooth is dedicated entirely to pop culture. Anything from video games to movies to TV shows to just about anything that anybody's talking about on a BuzzFeed article or any form of social media, that's what we're focusing on. Now, we're excited to talk about today's episode because we finally got to wrap up the glory that was E3 2018. And now it's time for us to get to a couple of discussions, more importantly focusing on a couple of controversies regarding E3 and a little concern that's centralizing around the Star Wars fan base. Now, while all that sounds interesting to talk about, we do have a small little segment to cover the news right now, so I would like to take an opportunity to start talking about the news. Now, ranging with the first topic. If you plan on checking out the latest Pixar movie, The Incredibles 2, If you're planning on checking out the latest Pixar movie, The Incredibles 2, but are prone to epilepsies, then you might come into some complications. Yes, it appears that theaters everywhere are putting up warning signs, letting audiences know that the film contains flashing images that might make people feel uncomfortable, especially those who are prone to epilepsies. This is after various people on social media noted that some of them felt uncomfortable during viewings of the movie. The Incredibles 2 came out in theaters last Friday and is still in theaters at the time of this episode. Now, I don't really know too much about the movie, but I guess there are certain points where it's like strobe lights flashing on the screens and everything.
Yeah, the main villain of the movie can sort of hypnotize people through screens, and there are a few images of the screens just sort of flashing quickly. And so far, I don't know of any reported, epileptic incidents that have been linked to it, but it is still a concern. So if you have epilepsy and it's triggered by flashing lights, just be aware of that.
It kind of concerns me a little bit because you'd think Disney or Pixar would have taken that into consideration when the movie came out into theaters and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't really blame them too much, but I just feel like there should have been like some kind of a staff or crew to check over the movie and make sure that there aren't any scenes that could possibly cause that, you know?
Yeah, especially for something as big as The Incredibles, and really any Pixar or Disney movie. It's the amount it's been hyped and the amount of money they're making, the amount of people in the seats, you'd think that they would have checked this, that they would have done something to, I don't know, even if they couldn't remove it in time, just, issue their own warning. Because so far they've just been telling, theaters to issue warnings at the door.
Yeah, they've been hanging signs at the doors at the doors of the theater that plays The Incredibles 2. Which, I guess they're informing people just as they're about to step into the theater, but it still feels like a bit of a bummer because somebody could have paid money for those tickets and then gone in and realized they can't watch this movie because they might have some kind of an epilepsy or something.
Yeah, and if you show up at showtime and then try to get a refund, some theaters, once the movie started, you can't get a refund for the ticket.
Yeah.
So essentially you've paid to not be able to see a movie if you or your kid has epilepsy.
Yeah, and I find that unfortunate.
Yeah.
But carrying on to the next topic. If you were a fan of the last Jumanji movie to come out, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, right? That's what it was titled?
Correct.
Then I have great news. The sequel is in production. according to a tweet from Dwayne Johnson, the movie will be written and directed by Jake Kasdan, and also written by original Jumanji writers Jeff Pinker and Scott Rosenberg. It'll be produced by Dwayne Johnson, Matt Tolmach, Danny Garcia, and Hiram Garcia. I mean, I'm a little excited about it. I didn't get to watch the last Jumanji movie to come out, but I am a huge fan of the original Jumanji. And I know it's not necessarily tied to the original movies, but there was a spin-off that had come out called Zathura, and I really enjoyed that too. I mean, I like the Jumanji movies. Now, I heard that Welcome to the Jungle was a bit more different than the original film. It wasn't centralized around a board game.
Yeah, in this one, Jumanji is like an arcade video game that a bunch of kids get sucked into, and they end up in the jungle of Jumanji as opposed to Jumanji coming out into the real world. However, it had some sort of connection to the original game because they actually showed the shack where Robin Williams' character from the first Jumanji actually lived while he was trapped in the board game.
Which is interesting. That's cool.
So there's some sort of connection there. Maybe Jumanji's just a world with multiple different portals to it, or... Yeah, I'm not going to theorize about the Jumanji expanded universe right now because that's just a rabbit hole we don't need to dive down.
Yeah. All we need to know right now is that the sequel is in fact in production, and it is going to have the original cast in there and everything. In fact, Dwayne Johnson actually cracked a joke during this tweet saying that Kevin Hart will die in the first 15 seconds of the movie, which is something to look forward to, because they seem to have a little bit of a friendly rivalry going on whenever they participate in any films together. Like, they have a good little buddy-buddy relationship going on, and I think that's a nice little touch. Onward to the next topic. It would seem as though AMC is trying to take on MoviePass with its very own service called AMC Stubs List. Now, the program does cost a little bit more than a MoviePass subscription, charging $19.95 a month, where MoviePass charged about $9.95 a month. But it comes with a couple of perks that MoviePass doesn't. While you can only see 3 movies a week, and it only applies to AMC theaters, but with Stubs List, you'll be able to see those 3 movies as many times as you want any time of the week. And unlike MoviePass, you'll be able to view not just the 2D versions, but also have access to the IMAX and 3D versions of the movie as well. It also includes a few other perks such as a dedicated line at concession stands, upgrades to the snack you obtain from there, and the option to pre-order movie tickets in advance as soon as tickets are on sale, as opposed to MoviePass where you're only able to pre-order the tickets on the night that you're going to see this movie.
So this is, on paper, it costs twice as much, and you only get 12 movies a month, as opposed to MoviePass's like 30 or 31, depending how many days are in the month. Mm-hmm. But it feels better thought out.
It really does.
Especially since MoviePass is hemorrhaging money between its honestly nonsensical business plan. I mean, seriously, someone only needs to see about 2 movies a month under their plan for them to start losing money. Mm-hmm. Plus, they've invested in movies like Gotti, which has been critically reviled.
The John Travolta movie that's focusing around the life of a known kingpin, John Gotti.
Yeah. And analysts are saying they might be out of money by the end of July. And this entire thing seems like it's better thought out. Yeah, it's more expensive. It's more restrictive. But this feels like it makes more sense as a business plan. It needs to be more expensive. It needs to be more restrictive.
Yeah.
Because that's how this works. That's how this could financially work.
Yeah. But I mean, I totally agree, though. I mean, I'd be more than willing to pay for AMC's Stubs Pass. Mm-hmm. Because while with MoviePass it is a little bit cheaper, with AMC there's a lot more options to choose from, you know? Instead of having to only order the ticket on the night that you go to see it, and only having to watch the original 2D versions, you're able to watch the movie any time of the week. And you're able to watch 3D or IMAX, which is a huge selling point for people, because more people are more than willing to watch the IMAX version as opposed to the original 2D version. Yeah. And some people are more than willing to pay a little bit extra to get that opportunity, especially if it means that they're able to watch the IMAX version of that movie as many times as they want. Now, the only downside to the AMC's Stubs Pass or whatever is that it's only limited to AMC theaters specifically.
True.
And some locations out there, they don't really have like immediate access to an AMC theater, as opposed to MoviePass's availability to any theater that accepts MasterPass, MasterCard.
Yeah, MasterCard. Here in Stockton, most of the theaters are Regal theaters as opposed to AMC ones, so that could be an issue for people that live here.
Yeah. But, I mean, if we did end up getting an AMC theater closer in Stockton, then we'd probably see more people going with AMC's program as opposed to MoviePass.
I'm hoping if this gets popular, theaters like Regal will start doing their own versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I can totally see Regal eventually wanting to try and do something like this because a lot of theaters are completely against Movie Pass, and they've stated it openly that they're against Movie Pass for quite a while. Some theaters specifically say that they won't allow Movie Pass, and if AMC is doing this, then surely there are going to be some other theaters out there who are going to decide to go with the same business tactic.
Yep.
Now, for the next little bit of news, I'm going to pass it over to Brian because he was excited to talk about it today.
So, a few months ago, as many people know, comedian Roseanne Barr, star of the hit TV show Roseanne, tweeted a racist joke, I guess, if you want to call it that, about a former Obama staffer. This led to her show's revival, the Roseanne Revival Season 10, whatever you want to call it, getting canceled within hours.
Immediately.
It was impressively fast, really. But now the Connors will be returning to the small screen without Roseanne.
Which is an interesting way to go with it, I mean, with Roseanne, what I've heard of a lot of people who were fans of the show Roseanne, there were three main selling points for people when it came to the show. There was the couple interaction between Roseanne and Dan, which was my mom's personal favorite parts of the show. There was the sisterly interactions between Roseanne and Jackie. And then there was the sisterly aspect between Darlene and Becky. And my assumptions is that when the Connors does come out, if it is coming out, they'll probably focus a lot more on that aspect between Darlene and Becky.
Yeah, they've said the entire cast sans Roseanne Barr will be returning, and that it will... The show was canceled actually on the first day of production for the second season of the Roseanne Revival.
Man.
And it's looking like with how quickly production is going into this, it will be taking the time slot and basic premiere date of what would have been the second season of Roseanne, the Revival, or the 11th. I'm not sure what to call it.
Not sure.
Yeah.
But one thing that is for sure is that the company is making real sure that Roseanne cannot have any involvement, bound by contract.
Yeah,
right?
She will not have any financial or creative stakes in this show, which I'm guessing ABC probably cut a pretty big check to buy the rights away from her, because, I mean, she's Roseanne. She probably owns the rights.
Yeah.
I liked Roseanne. I liked the original series. And I watched some of the Revival. I didn't like it quite as much because I felt it got a bit too political, and not necessarily because of which political side it landed on, but mainly because it felt more political than the original show had been.
I mean, Roseanne was kind of going downhill anyways, even with its original run. Once it started to hit the final season, when the Connors ended up winning the lottery, things just kind of turned downhill.
They've admitted they lost the thread in that final season.
Yeah.
Because the finale, they revealed that they never won the lottery. The sisters ended up with different husbands. Basically, they swapped husbands. The entire thing was a book Roseanne wrote, and that Dan had died.
Yeah, it was a huge bombshell, which kind of confused everybody when the show came back in the first place, because then they were like, oh, remember when Roseanne said none of this existed and she was just writing a book? Well, surprise, all of that was fake, and actually people are alive right now. Yeah,
they just sort of... I think they declared a mulligan with the 9th season, which I think for revivals they should be allowed to do that, because it lets them fix some things that may have seemed good at the time, but in retrospect were really bad.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where the Connors go from here.
Yeah.
Now, that about does it for the weekly news. However, that is but a mere segment in this show, and it's now time to cover trailer talk. In this segment, Brian and I discuss some of the latest trailers to come out this week. Now, not much has come out this week, but I searched around a bit, and luckily I found a few trailers for you guys to check out that I thought was pretty enjoyable, and hopefully Brian agrees with me as well. Now, the first trailer we have is Welcome to Marwen. It's starring Steve Carell, Leslie Mann, Janelle Monáe, and others. Now, the basis behind this trailer is that when a devastating attack shatters Mark Hogan Camp and wipes away all memories, no one expected recovery. Putting together pieces from his old and new life, Mark meticulously creates a wondrous town where he can heal and be heroic. As he builds an astonishing art installation, a testament to the most powerful women he knows, through his fantasy world, he draws strength to triumph in the real one. In a bold, wondrous, and timely film, Welcome to Marwen shows that when your only weapon is your imagination, you'll find courage in the most unexpected place. and is directed by the legendary Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah. Now, this is a fusion of live action and animation. There are bits where he's imagining the town of Marwin, which is this small town populated by dolls, action figures, whatever you want to call them.
Like G.I. Joe-sized figurines.
Yeah. And they're supposed to be stand-ins for Carell's character, Mark Hogenkamp, and the people around him. And there are periods when they sort of come to life in his mind and start fighting Nazis, which is an allegory for him being assaulted in real life by a group of Nazi thugs and him trying to deal with the pain and the fear that comes from this.
Now, the trailer looked really interesting to me when I first watched it, because I remember a few years back, they had done like a documentary film talking about this specific thing, the Marwin exhibit and everything. Because this movie is based off of a true story, ladies and gentlemen. And when I saw the trailers for that movie, it looked really cool. And so then I see the trailers for this one where they go even deeper into it. And it kind of has almost this this vibe that I got off another film, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Where it showed real life and it's just like seamlessly blended into imagination and everything, you know? And then it seamlessly went right back into reality. It caught my attention. So I'm really excited to watch this movie once it comes out, and I highly suggest you guys check out this trailer along with all the trailers that we talk about in any of our episodes ever. The next trailer we had gotten was for Creed 2, starring Michael B. Jordan, Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, Tessa Thompson, and others. The premise to that one is that, under guidance from Rocky Balboa, boxing phenom Adonis Johnson prepares for a bout against the son of Ivan Drago, the former Russian fighter who killed his father, Apollo Creed, in the ring years earlier. And the movie was directed by Stephen Caple Jr.
This is... I've never watched a Rocky movie, never watched the original Creed. They didn't really appeal to me. But I'm a sucker for drama. And the drama of two sons fighting out their father's past in the ring really gets me. Essentially, since, you know, Apollo Creed was basically beaten to death in the ring by Ivan Drago. Also, they're getting Dolph Lundgren back. I can only assume to play Ivan Drago. If not, I'd be...
Oh, yeah, Ivan Drago. Anybody who comes into the movies from the previous Rocky movies always plays their original characters.
I kind of want them to pull what they did with Transformers The Last Night, where they have Stanley Tucci come in to play a completely different character for no apparent reason.
Oh man, no, I don't. I wouldn't make such a curse to have a movie anything like a Transformers movie.
But I'm excited for this. I want to go out and see the original Creed so I can watch this, because I am genuinely excited for this, and I didn't expect to be.
It is the first Creed was a really great movie. I mean, I really like boxing movies. I don't know why. It's just they always really get me pumped and excited. And the first Creed was like a really good teacher-student film. It was kind of like how the original Karate Kid was, only this was with boxing instead of martial arts, basically. And I thought it was really good. I'm really excited for this movie to come out, and I'm sure anybody who's a boxing enthusiast would be excited about this movie as well as anybody who's just a really good fan of the Rocky films. Because even though this is a spin-off series and Rocky Balboa is on the sidelines, they still feel very much like a Rocky movie, which is why I loved Creed so much. And I'm excited about Creed 2 as well. Now, the third trailer we have is a more obscure one. It's a Netflix movie that's going to be coming out. It's called Like Father. It's starring Kelsey Grammer, Kristen Bell, Seth Rogen, and some others. The plot to that is that a workaholic woman who is left at the altar takes her honeymoon trip anyway with her overachieving father, who left her mother because he believed his family was holding back his career. And this was directed by Lauren Miller Rogen under the alias of Lauren Miller. I wanted to bring this up because this looked like a really good movie. I'm not normally like invested in father-daughter comedies, because they're usually full of cliches and all the normal tropes you'd see in those films. But the dynamic relationship between Kristen Bell's character and Kelsey Grammer's character, it really hits home for me. It really looks nice. I like Kelsey Grammer in movies lately. And he does a pretty good job in this trailer. He seems like a very carefree person, willing to have fun, trying to make the best of the situations and everything. But we still don't know too much about their relationship. Of course, we will find out once the movie comes out. But I figured I'd let you guys know about it so you could check it out. Now, that about does it for trailer talk, ladies and gentlemen. we have one last segment to cover before we get into our heavy discussions, and that segment is called On This Day. Now, in this segment, I do like to talk about stuff in history that was important to pop culture, because any fanatic who likes to go back into history for their arguments is heavily relies on information about stuff that happened on a specific day. So I'm going to list two little things that happened on this day, June 23rd, that happened in pop culture history that I feel was significantly important. On this day, June 23rd, 1980, the David Letterman Show debuted on NBC Daytime. However, it was shortly canceled a few months later on October 24th. Now, the David Letterman Show was a precursor to Late Night with David Letterman and had received huge success, but it was canceled after morning viewers couldn't handle the edgy comedy that the show was known for, seeing as during daytime, people were more used to soap operas, morning game shows, talk shows, and the whatnot.
It was sort of a late night show put up way too early.
Yeah.
Which seems like a death sentence from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as stated, this was a precursor to the whole late night series. Eventually, once it was focused more during late night instead of super early mornings, it started to gain a lot of popularity, and David Letterman became very well known as one of the most talked about talk show hosts at that time.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be pretty important. Now, on the other one, on this day, June 23rd, 1989, Tim Burton's Batman, starring Michael Keaton, was released in theaters. Now, this Batman film introduced us to his take on the Dark Knight himself, as he faced off against Jack Nicholson's iconic version of the Joker.
Yep.
Now, I gotta say, out of a lot of the Batman movies, my number one favorite, of course, would always be The Dark Knight, because I love the dynamic between Batman and the Joker in that one. But my second favorite would have to be the original Batman, because I loved both versions of the Joker. In The Dark Knight, you have Heath Ledger's more psychological, philosophical version of the Joker, whereas with Jack Nicholson, you have the more 80s comic book slapstick version of the Joker.
He's less of a criminal and more of the clown prince of crime.
Yeah. He felt more like a comic book villain than in a cinematic universe kind of a villain, which at that time seemed pretty accurate, because at the early installments of the Batman films before Christopher Nolan's trilogy, they started to get more and more campy, focusing more on the comic book aspects. But that was like around the time after Batman Returns, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was after Tim Burton left and he was replaced by Joel Schumacher.
Yeah. Since we're on that note, I know a lot of people don't really like it, but one of my favorite movies would have to have been Batman Forever. I know that's a very differing view, but I'm a huge fan of the Riddler, and even though Jim Carrey's performance wasn't as good as I had wanted him to be, I still like the fact that, the Riddler got his chance in the spotlight. And I'm still hoping that at some point in the future, we do get to see the Riddler come back into the DC cinematic universe.
Batman Forever was my favorite movie as a kid, and I think it's one of those movies I don't want to rewatch because I know it won't hold up quite as well as my memories do. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna let that be. I'm gonna let my memories be of this great movie.
Yeah, same here, man. So that about does it for On This Day, ladies and gentlemen. We've gone through all the small little segments. Now, before we tackle our main subject, we want to talk about a couple of controversies we mentioned in our previous episode, starting off with Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, at E3, when they launched the latest trailer for the next installment of the franchise, Beyond Good and Evil 2, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, former actor turned entrepreneur, came on stage and announced that Ubisoft will be teaming up with his company, Hit Record, and that fans will be able to benefit from this partnership with the opportunity to pitch in music and artwork of their own to populate the large world that the game will take place in exchange for monetary compensation. Though Hit Record's Space Monkey program, as they're titling it, folks will be able to submit art and music to various categories, and if it gets approved, it will be passed along to Ubisoft to be used in the game. However, only those who have their work approved will be paid, while those who aren't approved will not. This has started some controversy lately, as many have labeled the move as spec work and a poor way to gather art and music for the game, when they could just hire people specifically full-time to make said art and music. Which leads to the question, is the Space Monkey program a good one or not? What are your thoughts?
I think it is a good idea executed terribly. I think that Ubisoft is this game has been in development for over 10 years now. Beyond Good and Evil 2, it's gone through multiple reboots. They've invested a lot of money in it. And I think Ubisoft is trying to negate some of those losses by essentially not hiring professional artists. I'm not trying to, disrespect any of the artists that submit their work. They could be incredible. But video games have entire art departments of professionally trained and hired artists making a salary to make art for their video games. And now it looks like Ubisoft is trying to essentially get fans to do the work for them in return for relatively paltry compensation. Hit Record has said they essentially have a treasure chest of $50,000 to pay to all the artists. And they've specified that this isn't, one artist submits their work and they pass it on to Ubisoft if they like it. This is a collaborative thing where one artist submits their work, a bunch of other artists collaborate on it to improve it, and then it gets passed on to Ubisoft. So that's further diluting the probably already small amount of money this original artist would make. And it feels like a lot of artists are going to do professional level work, whether it be, standard art, it be music, it be anything like that, for the chance to get a one-time payment instead of getting hired to do a job. And Ubisoft is a massive corporation. They make billions of dollars annually. They can pay professional artists. They can actually pay their artists. They don't need to do this entire pseudo contest type setup to make art for their game.
But you see, that's the thing. I'm sure Ubisoft has a huge team of artists, people more than willing to submit all the artwork and music that they'd have to do in order to get this game done. But it feels like with the Space Monkey program, it's not necessarily trying to be cheap. It's more like giving people the opportunity to feel immersed into this world. People are able to submit their own artwork, their own music, and they fall into specific categories for everything. And if something gets approved, it'd be sent to Ubisoft in a small little package. Now, people are able to collaborate with each other, right? People are able to remix their songs. People are able to add little bits and pieces here and there into everyone's artwork and everything. But as opposed to when it comes to the possibility of people not being able to get paid accurately, Hit Record actually said that there's going to be, after people submit their artwork and it's approved, there's like a small little cash talk segment where each person who was involved in that project discusses how much money they think they deserve for their collaboration within this project. And they have about 2 weeks to discuss all this, so that way Hit Record can really decide who had the most involvement in this project, who had the least involvement in this project, and who should get paid more or less for their time spent in here. Now, of course, with this, there are also some small problems. There are people who want to put in culturally significant artworks, considering that it has more of an Indian vibe to it and whatnot.
Or at least the one place we've seen so far,
the one
Ganesha,
place we've seen so far.
Very influenced by Hindu, culture, Indian culture, things like that.
Yeah, and people are afraid that if they submit culturally important artwork, there's a chance that Ubisoft, since they're not really having any say in the projects, they might culturally appropriate it or may use it hurtfully in their artwork and whatnot. Yeah. So that's one thing that I am a little bit concerned about. I'm not really concerned about Hit Record ripping people off, because even if someone's artwork or music doesn't get approved by Hit Record and it doesn't go to Ubisoft, they still have some artwork to post on their own pages. They still have their own music to post onto their own sites and everything. It's just they didn't get paid a little bit extra for that little bit of work that they put in,
Yeah, my problem mainly is if Ubisoft likes the artwork or Hit Record likes their artwork, hire the artist. Don't just pay them a small sum for that piece of art they do. If you like the art, hire the artist. Hire them. Give them a salary.
That's another thing, too. That is another thing that a lot of people have been mentioning, and that is a very good point. There's been talks where, Ubisoft should, look at specific artists. There should be a way for an artist to put up a proposal for them to be able to submit artwork or music or something. And then Hit Record would check out their works, their artwork or whatever playlists they have, and if they like it, bring them on board to get it done. And that would be a good idea. But at the same time, that would also ruin the feel that the whole community is able to get involved into this project.
Of course, then there's the issue of what if an artist or group of artists makes this really great mural, and someone sees that and goes, I'd like to hire them to do art for my game. How will that be credited? Will you be able to go to the arc and there will be a water stamp down in the corner that says this was created by this person and this person and this person? Because that would break immersion. Or do they just get credited in the credits as additional art done by these people?
Well, I'm pretty sure that whoever has any involvement with like original works, like if somebody originally made that mural, there'll probably be some kind of a credit going towards that person. Original artwork done by this person, and edits done by this person, and this person. And I'm pretty sure someone would be able to, there'd be like a link or something to where someone would be able to check out their site or their DeviantArt page or their SoundCloud or something and check out their work and be able to contact them through there. Yeah. Even if things don't fall through for them with the Space Monkey program, it still feels like they would still have that opportunity to still get known somehow.
The problem is if they don't get credited on the artwork or credited properly in the credits, essentially what a developer might have to do is take a screenshot of the mural, put it into a Google reverse image search, hope it pops up with the DeviantArt account and not someone, say, that stole the work and put it on their own DeviantArt account or Tumblr or something like that, and then contact the artist. And that could be enough to turn some smaller developers or even bigger developers off of hiring this artist. They might just go with,
Well, I mean, what if they keep their original mural, though? Like, they have a copy that they already have on their page, but then they have the mural that's on the website. So then a person could check out the mural on the website and find out that there's an original version. They can go to that person's page and see the original versions.
Yeah, it's just the problem is they're going to make they're probably, I can't say because we don't know for certain, they're probably going to make the crediting process too sort of complex to easily find the artist. Do you have just all the artwork that fans submitted up on a page on the internet? Because then you have to scroll through that entire page to find the one piece of art you liked or one piece of music you liked. This feels like a good idea, completely flawed in execution. I like the idea of fans getting to work on the game. I don't like the idea of fans being exploited for a game.
I suppose. I mean, we'll find out more about the Space Monkey program as time goes on. If there's any extra controversies floating around it or whatever, we'll keep you all in touch. Anyways, on to the next topic. Recently, at E3, Fortnite was announced for the Nintendo Switch, and fans rejoiced. Finally, they'd be able to play their matches on one console, and then play on the go on the Switch. With the release, players discovered that they were able to cross-play Fortnite with almost all platforms except the PlayStation 4. In fact, Sony is in a bit of a controversy lately. Sony has banned crossplay between the PS4 and the Switch, and will not allow anyone who has their Epic Games account linked with a PSN account to access any of their content on the Switch, as well as the Xbox, seeing as a month or so ago, well, back in March, I want to say it was, they banned crossplay for the Xbox One as well for Fortnite, right? Yeah.
That was actually sometime last year. It feels recent because but it was a while ago.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
This has stirred major controversy with fans being outraged. Sony's defense is that it realizes that it's at the head of the console race, and that its player base is so large and that they sell so many consoles yearly that they refuse to risk having those numbers dwindle, which leads to the question, who's in the right here, Sony or Fortnite fans?
I think it's pretty clear that Fortnite fans are in the right here, because you still have to buy multiple versions of the game on each console. It's not like Sony is somehow losing money from game sales by someone buying it on the Switch instead of PS4. I mean, if they already own it on PS4, this isn't an issue. What it comes down to is they don't want to lose microtransactions. Because if you are able to link your Epic account to PlayStation and Switch, you could buy, say, the newest costume on Switch. Nintendo gets a percentage of that, but you're still able to use it on PlayStation without PlayStation getting a cut.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, Sony's kind of doing the same thing that any company would do. I mean, a Microsoft representative had said at one point that if Microsoft was at the head of the console race like PS4 was at the moment, Microsoft would probably be doing the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not necessarily that the PS4 is blocked from everything. It still allows cross-play onto iOS and Android and PC as well. It just seems that they really don't want to have to compete with any consoles at the moment because they're afraid that if their large fan base is suddenly able to play on a different console, they're going to start losing a large chunk of their player base, and they might lose a large chunk of their console sales. It's a really greedy move, but it seems like Sony likes to focus on the fact that people go to the PS4 because they know that it'd be the only way to play with their friends if they're playing on the PS4. And this controversy has been going on for a while, with PS4 being a jerk when it came to cross-play with Minecraft and Rocket League as well. And I can kind of understand Rocket League because it is a competitive game, and Sony seems to really like to keep its player base to itself when it comes to competitive games. But Minecraft seems a little ridiculous to me, you know?
Yeah, Minecraft, it's one of their excuses from last E3, this has actually been going on for a while now, is that they wanted to make sure that their child population of users was kept safe against, any potentially harmful effects. Ignoring the fact that they can't really do that even on their own platform. The technology just isn't there. Also, it's Minecraft on a Nintendo platform. I can't think of a more child-friendly game than that.
I know. It's ridiculous what they're doing with Minecraft. Especially with the fact that recently they launched a trailer for cross-play going on between Nintendo Switch and the Xbox One.
Yeah, it was a Nintendo ad, but they actually had the Xbox, the Xbox Green, the Xbox logo in one half of the ad for a while there. This was a joint effort between two rival consoles, or supposedly rival consoles. And I think Sony is afraid. Because if you go way back to the PS2 is considered one of the greatest consoles of all time.
Oh, of course.
With great reason. And they were on top of the market. And then they completely blew the PS3 reveal. It cost $600. They said if people couldn't afford it, they should go get a second job to buy their console. They were so arrogant that they completely blew that generation and handed it to the Xbox 360. So now that they're on top again, they are so terrified of losing that position again. They've grown arrogant again. They're going to lose people again because of this. And they need to just step back and realize that they cannot single-handedly control what gaming will be, because gaming is so much bigger than them. They're trying to control the way gaming will flow, and they just can't.
And, with PS4 doing all this, it makes it feel like, because I remember a while back, the whole controversy was going on over the whole console master race, Everybody was constantly talking about which console was better. Everybody was focusing on which console to get and was talking about all this. But now it seems like lately the biggest controversy going on is regarding crossplay and microtransactions.
Because at this point, consoles have hit such a point of parity. There's really not a better console. Some consoles have better games, but there's not a better console in the long run. And at this point, people just want to play together. They want to be able to buy a game for the PS4 and be able to play with their friends on Xbox. They don't want to have to make a $300 or $500 investment and just be able to play with their friends. And I get that, okay? I get wanting to be able to just play with your friends.
I agree as well. But, we'll find out what PS4 said, what Sony says about this whole controversy that's going on. But so far, it just seems as though they're not doing anything about this.
Oh, they've responded. They've said they've heard players' concerns and are looking into it. So they're not doing anything, basically. Suck an egg.
It's a shame. It's a real shame. Well, guys, it's time to get to the show's main topic.
Oh, boy.
The Last Jedi.
Here we go.
If you guys weren't aware, have been living under a rock for a while, or you're just not informed with pop culture, which is totally fine, the Star Wars fan base has been in shambles. This all started after fans went to see the latest installment in the latest trilogy, Episode 9, The Last Jedi. After the movie's release, the fan base became very divisive on their thoughts about how good the movie was. Some of us enjoyed the movie and had absolutely no problems with it, while others had quite a bit of gripe over The Last Jedi. However, the situation escalated and became much worse when Kelly Marie Tran, the actress who played as Rose Tico in Episode 9, had to leave social media after constant abuse and bullying from certain Star Wars fans who didn't like her character. After this news came out, the fan base has been in total havoc. People have come to her aid, thank God, such as Mark Hamill, the actor who played as Luke Skywalker, and John Boyega, who played as Finn in both episodes of the new trilogy. However, ever since the incident, a very wide brush has been painted over the fanbase, with a lot of folks showing their complaints that most of the fanbase, to their assumption, who didn't like The Last Jedi, are racist misogynists, which is ridiculous.
I get why some people don't like The Last Jedi. It took a lot of leaps with the Star Wars franchise. Some people might not like them. Plus, its story didn't really pay off all the leaps it tried to take. It sort of went back to the status quo at the end in what almost feels like some sort of executive intervention.
But, however, in an attempt to repair the fanbase, some unknown producers, they haven't given their names yet, have claimed that they are willing to pitch in money to have the entire movie remade, crowdsourcing ideas to make a script as universally accepted as possible, and somehow still incorporating Carrie Fisher into this even though she had passed away. The man who directed The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, said he'd be accepting of a remake in a tweet, but from our speculations, it seems more of a joke than something to actually take literally. With all this chaos in mind, it's time to discuss a major question, which is a question I want to hear your guys' feedback from. Should The Last Jedi have a total remake? In my opinion, no.
Yeah, to start off, this seems like absolutely a joke on Rian Johnson's part because he's become sort of this lovely troll to Star Wars fans on Twitter. He, at one point, reposted a defeminized edit of Star Wars that removed almost all women, and any women that were portrayed as weak and feeble because misogyny. And he essentially just laughed at it, and Mark Hamill laughed at it, and John Boyega laughed at it. And this seems like he's very much laughing at this too, sort of saying, okay, sure, you go make your remake, honey. You have fun with that.
It's just, it's ridiculous. I've heard of people getting mad over a Star Wars movie before. People have gotten really upset when the prequel trilogies had come out. And I remember at that time, too, there was also harassment going on regarding the actor who played as young Anakin on that movie.
Jake Lloyd.
Yeah, he got harassed really bad, too, but it wasn't as severe because social media wasn't as big of a thing back then as it is nowadays.
Oh, those sweet old times.
Man. But, I mean, I understand that people don't like a movie, but remaking it is such a crybaby thing to do. I mean, get over it. It is a movie.
Yeah, your remake, you're not going to change anything. I'm just going to say this. This remake won't change anything. Lucasfilm won't come out and say, okay, this is better than ours. This is now the definitive edition.
Yeah.
Because people have tried remaking the Phantom Menace and things like that, and it hasn't worked. This is just going to be you making a film with what you think Star Wars should be, but it's not what Star Wars is going to be. It's what your film's going to be, which, sure, that's great. But if you're going to make a film, go make your own film. Or if you're going to make a fan film, go make a fan film. Like, there's a Star Wars YouTuber right now who's funding a Darth Vader fan film about his life before A New Hope. And that looks really great because it's a new story. It's gotten the blessing of Lucasfilm. But go make your own film. Don't try to remake someone else's film because it didn't cater to you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. It's like, at the end of the day, no matter how much you try your best to remake it, even though fans are already pitching in like $30,000, $50,000 at the moment, so supposedly, to get this film done and everything, you are not going to make this film the original The Last Jedi. The fan base doesn't do that. They're not cool with that. No one says that the director's version of A New Hope is the definitive version of A New Hope.
No.
Nobody.
No one.
No one. And no matter how much you try and pitch in money into this, no matter how much you try and repair something, no matter how much you try and incorporate a character whose actress had already passed away, you are not going to remake it and make it official. And that's another thing. You can't make the movie official when the original was in dedication to an original Star Wars actress.
Yeah, there's, beyond this just being a crybaby fan move, there are legal implications to this. Lucasfilm will not let this fan film go forward, okay? Because they can legally stop this, and they will. Not just because it's, disrespectful to Carrie Fisher and disrespectful to the thousands of people that worked on making this film, but that is actively trying to compete with their original film. You don't just get to make your own film, market it, and sell it, and just say, oh, well, it's a remake of a film I didn't like. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, regarding all this stuff that's going on regarding The Last Jedi and all the fan base attacking each other, labeling everybody as this and that, I think it's all ridiculous. I mean, sure, there are some members of the Star Wars fan base out there who are really toxic.
There are some absolutely horrid individuals out there, like the people that pushed Kelly Marie Tran off Twitter, like the people that have been bullying Daisy Ridley, like the people that were harassing John Boyega.
But I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't the entire fan base.
It's not.
And this has been concerning me a bit because a lot of news articles have been trying to say that the entire fan base is like this. I believe a late night talk show recently.
The Colbert Show.
Yeah, the Colbert Show. Yeah, he recently released a trailer where it was just all women in there, and he included the female Ghostbusters, which I thought was fine. But they labeled it to where it's supposed to be insulting the entire fan base, which is supposed to be full of white misogynistic men, which confused me because I was like, this isn't the entire fan base. Why is everybody saying that every single person who didn't like The Last Jedi is this kind of person?
Because they're the people talking. The people that aren't these racist misogynists, they don't need to say anything. But the people that are feel the need to scream it out, so they are the visible and vocal minority of our group. And we may not like it, but those of us that aren't, those of us that genuinely do love Star Wars and don't really mind any of this, we do need to take responsibility for them because we are part of the same group as them. They are a subset of it, but we're part of the same group, and we need to take responsibility, and we need to prove that they do not speak for all of us.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the same thing happened when Episode 7 came out, The Force Awakens. A lot of people had problems with John Boyega's character. Everyone had problems with the leading roles and everything. I had no problems with it. I'm not going to get personally offended by a movie. If there was something that I didn't like, oh well. I'm not going to go on Twitter or social media and start attacking any actors or actresses. You know, I mean, I fall under the certain group of people who didn't like Rose Tico's character in The Last Jedi. It's fine with me. I don't have any problems with the actress. I don't know her. I don't really know any of the other projects that she is in. I wish her the best of luck. I hope she finds a lot more roles in Hollywood films, which she probably will because she is falling into a bit of popularity lately.
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, it's hard to talk about it because if somebody mentions they don't like Rose Tico, suddenly, bam, they're labeled as this and that.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. I didn't really like Rose Tico, mainly for the role her character took at the end of the film. I think she was a well-written character for the beginning of the film, but I feel like her towards the end of the film where she suddenly just stops Finn from sacrificing himself both devalued her character and Finn's character.
That was the scene that bothered me. I had no problems with Rose throughout the rest of the film. I liked her in the casino scene and everything, but it felt like when she ruined Finn's moment, it just really offended me because, you know, Finn was like really having a total heroic sacrifice going on and everything, and he was ready to just die as a hero and not as a stormtrooper, and then just bam, it just all got blindsided and it was just completely tossed out the window.
Yeah, when I was watching that for the first time, I thought, okay, they're going to kill Finn, and they're probably going to have Rose sort of take his place in his honor as a main character. And it feels like it literally blindsides him, which makes me feel like some studio exec felt that they couldn't kill Finn, that he was too marketable, so they changed that at the last second. It feels like a lot of the end of The Last Jedi was a change made at the last second by the studio because they needed to sort of restore the status quo of Star Wars.
Which, and that kind of bothers me, if they don't want to get rid of a character, if they didn't want to get rid of Finn, that's fine. They could have just gone into a little bit of extra writing process. People were more than willing to wait for The Last Jedi. If it had gotten delayed, people didn't care. Some people got a little upset, but then eventually we ate our sour grapes and got over it, But this whole thing is just really frustrating me, man.
It's the part of fandom that anyone in the fandom is embarrassed by.
Yeah.
It's the bratty cousin that screams when they don't get their way and demands that everything be, how they want it, that we play the games their way because they know best and they get everything and yada, yada, yada.
I don't know, man.
It's why I try not to say I'm part of fandoms. I say I'm a fan of something, but I'm not part of fandoms because fandoms are toxic.
Yeah.
Fans themselves can be perfectly lovely individuals, and most fans on a whole are probably perfectly lovely individuals. But when you combine them into this group that takes on its sort of own identity, it's the idea of one bad apple spoils the bunch. It can be 1 in 10, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, but that 1 in 1,000 can poison the well.
I agree. And you see, I don't like to associate myself with a fandom either. And I like to be involved in a lot of things. I don't like to be, I'm a fan of the Persona series, but I don't associate with the Persona fan base because they tend to be toxic over anything new that gets made.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Ruby, but I don't like to fall under the fan base because people tend to be very divisive over whether the show was good or not after the passing of Mani Ohm. I love Marvel and DC, but I don't like to fall under those fandoms because they are so competitive. It's like you cannot be in a fandom and like the other fandom's movies, or else suddenly you're a traitor and you don't belong in here. Like no one can be in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like no matter how good the movie is, no matter how respected the directors are or how respective the story is to everybody, the fandom always seems to boil down into something that's just, it's just rude, you know?
It's because, again, the toxic people are the loudest, and the loudest people get more people on their side, and it... I don't know.
I don't know either, man.
It's like, again, I'm a fan of Star Wars. I'm a fan of Persona. I'm a fan of Ruby. I'm a fan of Destiny. I don't consider myself part of any of these fandoms because I don't want to get lumped in with these people that send death threats, that threaten to kill people, that say this is the worst thing ever, even though they're the ones actively watching it. I want to be able to like something, and I don't think that's wrong. I want to be able to like something that I like without also having to hate every part of it and hate every fan of it.
Just because everybody else says that you should.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like fan bases either.
I absolutely love The Last Jedi. I think it's the greatest Star Wars movie ever. You may disagree, and that's fine. You may have your own personal favorite. You may hate The Last Jedi. That's fine. We all have different tastes. But just because you don't like something doesn't mean I can. And just because I like something doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah.
We can be different people. Crazy idea, I know. Individuality.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's totally fine if you liked The Last Jedi. I personally didn't really care much for The Last Jedi. I mean, there were certain parts that I liked. Cinematography was beautiful and whatnot. But in regards to my favorites, it always have to be The Force Awakens. It felt so amazing on such a grand scale and everything. And I guess it's also because of the fact that I loved The Force Awakens so much that I guess when watching The Last Jedi, I can't help but compare it to the previous installment of the trilogy. You know, but again, I'm not gonna get mad that, you know, I don't mind if somebody liked The Last Jedi more than The Force Awakens. I don't mind if somebody liked Episode 4 more than everything. I might be questionable if someone liked Episode 1 more than everything, but I won't get mad.
Yeah.
You know?
And this week I sort of been racking my brain trying to figure out why The Last Jedi has been the last straw. This is the movie that's the worst. This is the movie that needs to be remade. And I think I figured out it's because it's change. Because we had the first 3 Star Wars movies. We had the original trilogy, and they were great.
Yeah.
And everyone loved them, and, you know, the fandom was sort of... There were issues like Ewoks and the Christmas special, but most of the fandom was united that this was a great series.
Yeah.
And then we got the prequels. And
prequels.
That tore the fandom apart. And for a while, that sort of created these camps of people, you know, that liked them, that didn't like them, that wanted to harass child actors because you're horrible human beings if you did that. I'm just going to say that. You're a garbage person.
They are horrible people if they did do that.
And then we got The Force Awakens, which was really... It was a remake of A New Hope. It was... A lot of the points were recycled. There was new stuff. I'm not going to deny. There was a lot of new stuff. But it was very much a return to A New Hope. And that sort of brought the fandom together again, aside from, you know, things we stated earlier.
Yeah, it was a new hope with a fresh coat of paint is what it felt like to me. You know, and there was a lot of parts in the movies that, like, correlated to A New Hope. I mean, trash compactors, on the abandoned desert planet where the main character lives and whatnot, and suddenly has a call of action and everything.
A giant space station that shoots lasers that can destroy planets. And I think the fandom tried to bring the sigh of relief that we were getting back to what Star Wars was supposed to be. I'm sorry about that. And then The Last Jedi comes along, and it sort of questions, what is Star Wars? Is it all these tropes just being played over and over again? Or is it this theme that can be put into different movies? It can have fallible heroes. It can have mentors that fail. It can have shades of gray instead of just the light side and the dark side. There can be something in the middle. And it was just so different from what the other films had told us that I think that fans are afraid that we'll go back to this era of prequels, where we'll get movies of that quality, where it won't be the Star Wars they love.
Yeah. I agree. It seems like a lot of people aren't very comfortable with The Last Jedi because they had their nostalgia goggles on, like myself, when watching the movie. And Rian Johnson had basically told everybody that The Last Jedi, the hints of it was letting go of the past.
Yeah.
Moving on, seeing what happens to the franchise once we let go of all these things that we were comfortable with. Han Solo was gone, Princess Leia was gone, Luke Skywalker was gone. So we have all these new characters, and we're supposed to see where these people go. But no one wants to, because everybody wants these new characters to be exactly like the characters that we were so used to in the original trilogies.
And I think we need to look at it and go, okay, this isn't the series from our past. Carrie Fisher, as much as we miss her, she's gone. Mark Hamill is going to be gone. Harrison Ford is going to be gone. But that doesn't mean Star Wars has to be gone with them.
Yeah.
And we need to accept that change, while scary, has to happen.
Another example of how holding on to the past could be such a problem was when Solo came out into theaters.
Yes.
A lot of people's problems with a lot of people loved Solo and I respect their opinions on that. There are some people who didn't like Solo, and the reasons why they didn't like Solo is because it focuses so much on nostalgia. The gold dice that he had in the Millennium Falcon, how he meets Chewie, how he meets Lando, how he, does all these cool things that he talked about in the 4th installment, like the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. But they focus so much on this that there's no character development. Nobody's going anywhere. It's literally, look at this. Do you remember that? I remember this. Do you remember that? It was like a bunch of member berries made the script to Solo, a Star Wars story. And it gives off an important message. Of course the original trilogy is going to be great. I loved the original trilogy. But we can't stick to that trope forever.
Yeah.
And
I think it comes from a lesson that a lot of people miss towards the end of The Last Jedi. It's that you can forget some of the past, but you can't forget all of it. And yes, but you shouldn't stick to it rigidly. Accept that change is coming, and accept that you'll have to leave some of the past behind, but you can still take some of it with you. You can't sit in the era of Solo where everything is the same, everyone acts the same way they did back in the 70s. But you also can't go fully new with it like they did in the prequels, because that gets people upset. You need to strike a balance between old and new. And some people don't like that. Some people just want old, and some people just want new. But balance is where it is. And I think that's the lesson of Star Wars as a whole, is you have to have balance.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're just going to have to get used to change, because Rian Johnson is going to be making the next trilogy in the Star Wars saga once it comes out. And we're going to have a fresh new take on everything. Fresh new characters, new stories, and everything. And of course, there might be some characters from the previous trilogy, but as with the characters from the trilogy before that, they're eventually going to have to fade off so we can focus on something new. Now, we just about wrapped up the hour. Before we close off, I just wanted to get a little word out. I know there's been a lot of talk lately about how, with everything going on lately in the fan base and with Solo not doing so well in theaters, there have been rumors floating around that Star Wars story spin-off films, such as the Obi-Wan Kenobi film and the Boba Fett film, are supposedly on hold. But in an interview, Lucasfilms had stated that spin-off Star Wars movies are in development. They're not put on hold. It's just we're not sure what the status is on these films. They are focusing on the trilogy with Rian Johnson. And then there's supposed to be another trilogy coming out from Game of Thrones directors. I always forget their names, to be honest.
D.B. Weiss and David Benioff?
Yes, those ones, yeah. But just know, folks, that there are still spin-off movies going out there. Just hopefully this gets to show a little bit of a change. And I'm excited the most about the Obi-Wan Kenobi Star Wars story, because the way he acted in the prequel trilogies and the way he acted in Episode 4 are completely different. He was a bit more arrogant as a student and a teacher in the prequels, and in Episode 4 he's more of a wise old man. Yeah. And we also have the Boba Fett origin story coming out as well, where we get to see what happened to Boba Fett after the events of Episode 2, hopefully. Either that or he survives the Rancor pit after Episode 6. But just remember, folks, they're not done. They're not canceled.
think they're just going to take a step back and reevaluate how they make these, because I think they've heard the complaints from Solo. I think they've seen how Solo's doing. I think they realize that Solo may have been a misstep creatively, and I think they're going to reevaluate.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that about does it for today's episode of the Phone Booth. Please tune in next week on KXVS, the voice of Stockton, at 1 o'clock every Saturday as we do our best to relay any pop culture information to you guys. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today is my friend Brian Rodriguez. Thank you guys for tuning in, and have a great weekend.
See you next week.